There we go. Hello, everybody. Giving you all a few seconds to get connected. Everybody welcome in. Looks like most are in. Audio is connecting still to some. I want to say good afternoon and thank you for joining us. My name is Joanna White. I'm the Assistant Director of Program Scholarships and Awards here at the FSU Alumni Association. We are excited to have you here for our second career services focused webinar in partnership with the FSU Career Center. We are excited to be able to bring you this virtual engagement to you as our professionals in the Career Center understand that the job market changes frequently and they are relishing the opportunity to continue assisting you along your career path. And I would like to give a special thank you to our Alumni Association members who are joining us today. Your commitment to the university and this organization is noticed and appreciated. I would also like to thank our corporate partners for their generous support, which makes programs like this series possible. We're especially grateful to have Golden Key Consulting LLC, an FSU alumni-owned business, as this series presenting sponsor. Florida State Alumni Association National Board Director Shannon Libert is an expert in human capital and executive search consulting and would love to connect with you. And we will drop her LinkedIn in the chat. Thank you to Golden Key Consulting. And so today I'm happy to introduce you to our presenter and FSU alumna, Christy Mantzanis, our Senior Assistant Director of Employer Relations at the Career Center. With her is fellow FSU alumnus Ryan Hall of Deloitte to help provide insights on how to successfully complete a job search. There will be time at the end of the presentation for general Q&A with both Christy and Ryan. So Christy, it's all yours.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, fellow Knowles. So I'm going to share just a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to ask our special guest to share a little bit about himself and the organization he is representing tonight. So I'm super excited to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour with you. After I graduated from Florida State University, my heart led me to work in a career where I could make a difference in the lives of others. So for over the last 2 decades, I have had the honor of serving students at a private university, a community college. And recently, about 2 years ago, I came home to the FSU Career Center. So I lead a team of career liaisons who provide all things career to the College of Engineering, the FSU College of Business, and then also the College of Arts and Sciences. So when Joanna and I began planning these webinars and sessions, we both thought it was really important that we bring an expert from the employer side. We didn't want to just give you, my perspective and what we talk about in the Career Center, but we wanted to bring someone who is actually a hiring manager, someone who knows how the inside of a job search process works. So boy, do we have the best with us tonight. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you work?
Yeah, I never have been called an expert, but I'm flattered. Thank you, Kirsty. Just a little about me. So I graduated in undergrad of December of 2017, and then I attended my Master's of Accounting at FSU and graduated in 2019. From there, I went to Deloitte, which is the employer I've been with since graduating. For the last 3 years, I've been part of the audit and assurance practice. So for some of you that don't know about Deloitte or haven't heard what Deloitte does, they're one of the big 4 accounting firms. So you have the PricewaterhouseCoopers, EY, KPMG, and Deloitte. So Deloitte is proud to be part of one of the largest global professional service networks serving our clients in numerous markets. Deloitte has offices in over 120 cities in the US and 113,000 employees. In addition, we have over 150 countries we have offices in, so plenty of places to go if you don't want to be in Florida or wherever you're listening from. There's numerous locations. Just a little about what we do. So we work with clients across 4 business sectors. Audit and assurance is what I do. So that's, auditing 10Ks and a lot of the financial markets. We also do consulting, risk and financial advisory, and tax. As a professional service organization, we offer a variety of services to our clients to make a positive impact on their business. We're constantly transforming, growing, and evolving by embracing new and emerging technologies. Some of it are artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, and analytics. The thing about Deloitte that I love the most is what we do for our employees. So just some of the accolades that we've gotten the last few years is the Fortune Top 100 Best Companies for 2021, one of the best workplaces for parents, and a top 10 company for working mothers, as well as DE&I Best Places to Work. So Christy, you want to kick us off on the agenda?
I am happy to, Ryan. Thank you for sharing that about Deloitte. So our plan for this evening is Ryan and I are going to walk you through all things job search process. We're going to first break down the Florida State Career Center resources. Then we're going to talk about the actual job search process and the steps to completing and creating an effective job search. We'll talk about developing targets. We'll talk about how to organize your search, the methods that we recommend to find the best opportunities out there. And then we'll cover application materials. Ryan and I have some pro tips in store for you. And then of course we have to talk about the common mistakes so we can ensure that you don't make those. And then at the end, we'll have time for question and answer. So if you will, just hold your questions till the end. If you do pop them in the chat, we'll get to those at the end as well. All right, so let's first talk about the Career Center resources. So as an FSU alum, you have lifetime access to the Florida State University Career Center, and that's something that we're very proud of. Many universities, once you're out 3 years or more, you're not necessarily able to utilize all their services. So we're really proud to bring you that for your lifetime. Our career guides on our alumni resource page are a really great place for you to start and for you to refer back to because everything that Ryan and I are going to cover are in these guides. So if you go to the Career Center's website, you'll see across the top there's a tab for alumni. And the very first item on the menu that will drop down is Alumni Resources. And I would recommend that you refer to these. And also, I forgot to mention earlier that Joanna will be sharing this PowerPoint slide, the slide deck with you all, so you can refer back to these as well. You can also meet with the career liaison from the college that you graduated from. So for example, on my team, since I supervise the career liaisons within the College of Business, if Ryan decides that he wants to look for his next adventure, he can always come back and meet with Cameron Hatcher or Lauren Sponberg, who work directly with the College of Business. And you'll find on that Alumni Resources webpage how you can either schedule a virtual appointment to meet with our liaisons, or you can always drop in to see us. Of course, we're open in the Dunlap Success Center Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4:30. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what studies have shown about the job search process. So many studies show that most job seekers start their search by going straight to an online job board like Indeed or LinkedIn, and they submit the same resume and the same cover letter to every job that looks interesting. You read that job posting, you think, oh, I can do that. So most people just go ahead and click, these online job boards like Indeed and ZipRecruiter. They make it very easy for you just to click that submit button. But what research has shown is that is actually the worst way for you to conduct your job search. So these steps are actually the most effective way So let's kind of walk through these for a minute. So it's important to understand the time it takes to execute a proper search. Typically, so for example, I have a job posting that I'm the hiring manager for and the search committee chair right now. That position was posted for 2 weeks. And then our search committee will rank those candidates. So that's going to be another 2 weeks before we actually invite anyone to an interview. So from start to finish, from the time we post a job to the time we send out an offer letter is going to be probably 8 to 10 weeks. How long would you say y'all's search process is, Ryan, from the time you post that job to the time you give that offer letter?
Yeah, it's probably slightly shorter. It's probably similar 2 weeks when we'll post it, and depending on how many candidates we get and what kind of candidates we get, it'll probably last around 2 weeks, and then we close it, and then we'll do rounds of interviews. So you might meet with a few managers in your office, and then you'll meet with some partners and directors. And then through that process, it'll probably be another 2 weeks. So by the end of it, you're probably close to 5 to 6 weeks through how we do our recruiting and vetting process.
All right, that's very helpful to know. I want to make sure everyone notes, though, that this is a continuous circle, and every step in the process is really important. So in today's labor market, we've had lots of graduates, lots of students coming with multiple offers. So the great news is if you're looking for a new opportunity, there could not be a better time for you to be out there exploring. But I think it's really important to consider developing those job targets. And Ryan's going to talk to us about that on the next slide. But we want to make sure that you're applying to an organization that aligns with your values, your interests, the company culture. All those things are so important. So we want you to think about those things before you start clicking submit to all those job postings. All right, so over the next few slides, we're going to break these down for you and do a deep dive into each one. So the first step in that process is to develop job targets. This one is often overlooked, and it can really make all the difference in the time it takes to complete your job search. So Ryan, would you like to talk us through what a job target is?
Yeah, of course. And just to resonate what Chrissy said, I think it's so important as you are being interviewed, you also want to be interviewing these potential employers for some of those key values, stuff that means a lot to you. Obviously, Deloitte has some of the accolades, but there's numerous ways you can Google employers and see what are they doing in your community, and make sure you find an employer, that hits those marks. But one of the best ways of doing that is in our developing the job targets. So as we get started, it can be helpful to develop job targets to guide our search. You want to keep our values, interests, skills in mind as we create our targets. You want to find it useful to write down the factors. I know I always love making lists, so that's the most helpful way I do it. And find what's the most critical for your potential job. For some, this might be type of field or the industry, a specific occupation, a preferred location, or most likely it's a combination of the both. For example, you may want to live in Miami and work in a field of finance. So in this situation, our target would be a finance organization in the Miami area. But you also want to make sure that occupation is both interesting to you and is a good fit to those values we listed ahead. So the job target is the intersection of individuals' most important factors. You can have multiple job targets to expand your search, but the purpose of a job target is to focus a search for a better use of time and energy. So it's best to be intentional and specific. Kind of what Chrissy was saying earlier, we found spamming, job postings on LinkedIn, Indeed is not the most effective approach. So let's consider narrowing our job targets enough so you can focus your energy and finding the position in which you are most interested in. We have found, spamming these boards is not as effective as it may seem. It's been proven organization, as discussed above, is the most effective start to developing our job target. Chrissy, you want to dive a little deeper on how candidates can organize their job search?
Absolutely. So I'd like to start off when we're talking about organizing your search, just by sharing a very quick story. So as I mentioned earlier, I am currently chairing a hiring committee, a search committee right now. And our third candidate interview was yesterday, and they literally had no idea what position they were interviewing for. So you can imagine what kind of impression that left on the search committee. So that's why these steps are so important. You know, you can make your search plan as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. I love an old-fashioned handwritten list, but it's important to note what employers you've reached out to, where you've submitted those applications. And I would highly recommend saving a copy of the actual position description. So if you get called for that interview, you'll be able to prepare a lot easier for it. It's also important to note the responses you've gotten, so you can determine in that reflection piece of the job search process, is what you're doing working? Or do you need to make adjustments and change? And then also that step number 5, the follow-up step, is something that I know I don't see enough of as a hiring manager. I did receive a thank you note or an email from the person that we interviewed yesterday, and it was even more obvious in the thank you note that they did not have an understanding of what the position was. And then, of course, you know, they sent a generic email that was clearly copied and pasted. So the more attention to detail you can spend on those small things, those are the things that make you a memorable candidate. Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add about the organizing your search?
I think step 5, just like you said, is so important. And I know it's always appreciative if you just put even a sentence or two of something you may have discussed. It could have been, you know, the Lightning game, the playoffs, or it could be just a hobby you guys talked during the interview. Just to Chrissy's point, showing that, you know, you were engaged and, you know, there's something from that conversation, I will place you right back to the interview.
That's an excellent tip, Ryan. Okay, so we are gonna switch gears a little bit. Oh, let me go back one. To talk about job search methods. So I'm gonna share my screen with you all. I'm gonna stop the PowerPoint for a moment and share with you Knoll Network. So all FSU alumni, again, that lifetime access you all have to Knoll Network. So this is what Knoll Network looks like. You can see the landing page here where you can look for jobs, you can create a public profile. So just like LinkedIn, one of our most popular employer services in the FSU Career Center with the organizations we work with is our resume books. So an employer, once we've verified that they are a legitimate employer and they go through an approval process, you have the opportunity to opt in to our resume book. And employers will often go in that resume book and they will keyword search. So if they're looking specifically for someone with skills in QuickBooks or HTML or Java, they go to look in our resume book and then they can contact you directly for those opportunities. So I want to make sure you don't forget about Knoll Network. We talked to about 20,000 employers, and they all want to hire alumni. They're not just seeking students. So log into Knoll Network. You can find this also on our website. And if you need any help getting your account up, you can always just call us and we can walk you through those steps. All right, so give me 1 second. I apologize. Let me get back here. So that's our kind of null network perspective. Ryan, would you like to talk to us about what impact professional associations and your professional network can have on your job search?
Yeah, so for me, I'm part of a few professional associations. So one of them is the Florida American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. I'm also a part of just the national AICPA. I think constantly associations are posting, new job opportunities specialized to our degree. So, the AICPA will be specialized to accounting majors. So it's a great opportunity to go on their job boards and find relevant job openings. They also establish, similar to what our Knoll network does, these are credible organizations. So you're not wasting your time on spam, which you might get on some of these other boards like LinkedIn and Indeed. I also know there's some of the more social clubs that are fantastic at expanding our network. So most major cities have seminal clubs or host FSU events for watch parties, dinners, happy hours. I think these are also great for us just expanding our network and job search methods.
That's great, Ryan. We talked a little bit about the larger job boards like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, even Glassdoor is a popular one. And often they have stale job postings there, because if you're thinking about it from the employer lens, if Deloitte has an opening, they're going to likely just push it out to maybe 1 or 2 job boards. But if they don't want to repeat and post the same job multiple times, they might post that position for 3 months, even though, Ryan told us that typically it's just 2 weeks. So just remember in the back of your mind, if you want the freshest, most current, up-to-date job postings, you're going to definitely get those from the professional associations, and then also the company websites and social media. So when you think back to your job targets, so those employers that you've identified that you want to work for, the first thing I would do is follow them on all their social media. And then you're going to really get quick updates from them about their talent and what they're seeking. But there's also industry-specific job boards. So if you are in technology, for example, DICE is going to be the ideal board for you to go and look at. There are, for healthcare employees, there are medical jobs. Now, if you're specifically looking for a remote position, there are job boards out there that only post remote opportunities. And when you're compiling your searches or your search agents in any of the job boards you're using, you can actually click for the job type remote there. So it'll help you narrow down that search window. But did you have anything else? Any other tips you want to add to that, Ryan?
No, I think we covered most. I think a lot of these job portals, you can kind of tailor on the filters, the location, the industry. So some of these larger companies, Google, for example, you might not be in tech, you might want to be on their HR. So they have the ability so we can toggle these for our offices, our occupation. So I think everything we talked about before really plays well into our job search method.
Excellent. All right, so let's dive into the application materials. So what we recommend for your resume is that you have a master resume. So this master resume may be 3, 4, 5 pages. It doesn't matter how long that document is. We want you to have everything there so you can easily copy and paste it and tailor the resume for each position you're applying for. So I know that that's the most time-consuming part. So remember in the beginning, we talked about if you go to that job board and you just click submit the same resume to those 100 jobs, they're likely not going to make it through the company's applicant tracking system. So you'll see here, that's also known as an ATS. So an applicant tracking system actually looks for keywords and the minimum requirements for the position. So Florida State's applicant tracking system, for example, the position I'm hiring for now requires 2 years of higher education experience. So how does that applicant tracking system know if you have 2 years in higher ed? That's where keywords come into play. So it's really important that you analyze that job posting and then put those keywords into your document so that the applicant tracking system will identify those. Ryan, does Deloitte use an applicant tracking system?
They might behind the scenes that I might not be aware of. I would be surprised if we don't, for the very reason, you were saying, just to make sure you're hitting candidates that hit the minimum requirements. So I would expect most of our employers would be using some form of it, if it's not just their HR department quickly going through them, or that more automated system.
Yeah, and there is a note on here about templates. So we do not recommend using a template. Many templates are written in columns, and an applicant tracking system is going to read left to right. So if your resume, you're using one of those pretty templates and your information is in columns, when the ATS reads that, it's going to be a bunch of jumbled words that don't make sense. So we have resume writing samples in our resume guide, which is on our website. You'll also want to use the specific format for your industry. So accounting, Ryan, can you talk to us a little bit about what's the best format for an accounting resume?
Yeah, most of them are one-pagers, which is, I think, a little out of the ordinary of some of the other industries and careers where you list everything you've done. So it does make you be very selective about what you use. So you do have to really brainstorm and tailor it to the job you're applying to. So if you only get one page, you don't want to waste it with stuff like, you're proficient in Word and PowerPoint, even though those might not, you might be, but that might not be the most tailored approach to the job if they're looking for someone with 5 years of experience. So what I would recommend is your experience, a lot of great action verbs, really going into detail about what you did at your prior experience, rather than just, close the books. You could get into much more detail about your day-to-day, specific wins you may have done if you're in sales, and stuff like that really separate you from, when you get 100 of them. Those action words and action verbs are what differentiate when I look at a resume. And I know a lot of my peers as well.
Excellent. And Ryan, do you like when someone quantifies their results and their job duties on their resume? Do those numbers speak to you?
I love numbers, and they do. It does stick out when it is very specific. So even in sales, if you had $1 million in sales in the last year, rather than just saying you sold X, to someone like me, I might not know how big of an account that is. So quantifying stuff like that really differentiate you from your other candidates that are applying to the same job.
All right, and I'll share one more quick story to kind of describe how the applicant tracking system works with keywords. So we have, we had students that were applying for positions with Target, and the minimum requirement in the posting was 1 year experience in guest service. So students were applying for those positions, but they were saying customer service. So because the words didn't match between customer and guest, and Target wants guest is their word, a lot of students weren't offered interviews. So it can be just as simple as a word can make a difference on whether or not you get that interview. So one trick we've learned over the years is there are many free word cloud generators online. So what you can do, a little neat trick, is you just copy and paste the actual position description into a word cloud generator, and it will take out all the keywords for you. And then you can make sure that those are on your resume. So let's talk about cover letters really quick. I think Ryan and I have a very different perspective on these. So Ryan, how do you feel, or how does Deloitte see cover letters?
I know it's not the top of the mind thing we look at. I think a lot what we look at, if you're a student coming into the workforce, obviously your accounting GPA, which is specific outside of your normal Florida State GPA, is very common for us to look at. But as you are an experienced hire, work experience is one of the highest things we look at, as well as like community service, other activities and hobbies, just to get to know you and see what you're interested in. Cover letters are not deal breakers for us, so it's always great to have it, but it's not going to be what always is going to win you over. Where I know, Christy, you may have a different take on this.
Yes, so at Florida State, we read the cover letter first. So it is your opportunity to tell us why you want to work with our university, why you want to work with our center. So those are super important on the priority list for us. So what you want to do is just know your audience, certainly use that professional network you've built over the years and find out. My rule of thumb is always, it can't hurt to submit a cover letter. Ryan, if it comes down to two candidates and one has a letter and one doesn't, would you likely go with maybe that cover letter would have some influence there?
Yeah, and I think it's just another opportunity for you to, put who you are out that might not be, reflected in that one-page resume. So, when we get to the needle, I think it's something that's going to separate you, no different than the thank you notes. Little things like that, I think, are what really separate you from the pack.
Absolutely. And when it comes to preparing for the interview, again, you all have lifetime access to the Career Center, and we do mock interviews. And we do a lot of mock interviews with professionals who maybe you've been out in the workforce for 5-10 years. You haven't interviewed in a while. Come and practice with us. What we do for that process is you'll schedule an appointment with us. We'll ask for your resume in advance, and we'll also ask for the job posting that you're applying to. So then we can customize those interview questions that we ask you. All right, so now let's get into our pro tips here. So we talked a little bit about this, how to set up job alerts, how to narrow your search on the job boards, whether it's Knoll Network or LinkedIn. But I found an interesting fact here that LinkedIn says that you're 4 times more likely to hear back about a position if you apply within the first 10 minutes. And I think that speaks to, again, the labor market that we're in right now. So the quicker you apply, the quicker you get your documents in there, the better your chances are. We also want to think about maybe considering an industry that has a talent shortage. So even if you are an HR expert or a human resources certified professional, you could look for a position within a cybersecurity company or analytics or project management. So these were just some of the industries that I found in a quick Google search that they have talent shortages now. Another thing you can do is subscribe to LinkedIn's talent blog newsletter. And they send out really great articles about all things talent related. But Ryan, talk to us about networking. Why is it so important?
Yeah, I think networking is probably the most important thing you can do when you are looking. We talked about your professional practice organizations and more of the social ones, but those are what are going to differentiate you from the interview, and especially that vetting process when we're getting 100+ resumes and stuff like that. If you met the person maybe before at a happy hour or at a lunch or a coffee social and made an impact on them, they're immediately going to be looking for your resume. They're going to be immediately, moving you to the top of the pile. So just having a strong network, if it's LinkedIn, I think is a great, professional way of having a social media. you can follow me, you can follow recruiters, you can follow the organization. And that's a great way so you can get in those first 10 minutes and get ahead of a lot of the other people that are applying. And then obviously, a lot of people will look at your personal social media. So just making sure, that's still professional, now, especially when you are in the interview process. I think you can always put stuff that's passionate to you, but I think just making sure you maybe do a quick scroll through some old pictures, making sure nothing from your college days are still on there. Because a lot of people do look at your personal one because they want to put a name to the face, and that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, that's so true. And so if you haven't Googled yourself recently, I would Google yourself tonight. All right, Ryan, let's go through some of these common mistakes so we can help our audience make sure that we don't make these. So we talked a lot about how the job search process works, the steps in the process, and how to be organized in your search. So it's just like any other project you worked on. You're going to want to create your plan, and then whatever tool is best for you. If you want to have a spreadsheet, or I use OneNote for a lot of tasks and lists. But the worst thing you can do, remember, is to blast that same resume to every job. And that's kind of the same thing as submitting a one-size-fits-all resume. Is you got to remember that applicant tracking system is literally reading the words on your resume. So if you want to meet the minimum requirements to get through the applicant tracking system and passed on to the hiring manager, it's really important that the words on there match. So Ryan talked a little bit about networking. We know the hidden job market is very well and alive. So it's important that you don't start networking when you're in the job search process. We want to be building that network. So you have people that can serve as your references, people that you can talk to about your search and let them know what you're looking for. Ryan, do you have maybe some a story or anything you want to share with us from the employer perspective about the interview prep or the resume being too short or too long?
Yeah, I think the interview is where most of the pitfalls I see. A lot of it is because people are nervous, which is totally understandable. So that's why I think mock interviews is a great practice. You get the jitters out, you get to practice some of the more common questions you're going to get, especially at Deloitte. I know a lot of the questions we ask are very more personal rather than technical. So just getting that more familiarity about your resume, being able to speak about what you've done and kind of sell yourself is where a lot of pitfalls come. Christy and I were talking a little earlier about just a candidate we had not too long ago who at the end of the interview, I think is a great time where you can ask impactful questions about what means a lot to the firm. And that's where you get to interview like Deloitte or EY, is you can ask questions like, how are they involved in the community? How do you hit my core values? But we had a candidate ask, how much do partners make? Which was probably not the greatest question you want to ask right out of the gate as an entry level position. So that's just one that, sticks in my head, and then everyone talks about it. So, just making sure you're asking more professional and tactical questions. Obviously, everyone wants to, make as much as the partners, but maybe not asking that as your very first question out of the gate would be a good mock interview. I think we would have vetted that if we were doing mock interviews with him.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ryan. And I also want to touch on assessments. So many large organizations have an assessment that you take once you are in the application process there. And if it's a behavioral assessment, it's always best to answer those questions with your first instincts. Go with your guts. Never try to answer the questions according to what you think the employer is looking for. We actually conducted a site visit last week, and they shared an example with us about, it was actually a FSU alum who had been out for about 6 years. And They did really well on the behavioral assessment. They thought, okay, all of your skills, your personality, your interests, everything aligns with our organization. And then once that person started work there, it took them maybe 3 days to figure it out that that was not the same person that took that assessment. Have you had any encounters with assessments, Ryan?
I have not. I know my wife who just went through this process, and I wish we had this slide deck before, but her employer, that was the first thing before they even got to the interview process, was a behavioral thing. And I think it's so important, like you said, stay true to who you are. You would hate to answer the questions what you think the employer wants, and then you have to, go against all your core values or your beliefs or who you really are. I think bringing your true self to wherever you end up going is so important. So answering those honestly is such an important start. And maybe it's not the employer picks you back, but maybe they weren't the right job for you in the first day.
You hit the nail on the head there, Ryan. Yeah. So we have reached the end of our slide deck here, and I want to give a huge personal thank you to Ryan for being here with us tonight. Not only do you represent the College of Business, but also Deloitte. And Deloitte is one of our gold partners in the Career Center, and we just so enjoy working with your recruiters. And thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. This has been incredible.
All righty, Miss Joanna, do you want us to kick it to question and answers?
Absolutely. There haven't been any in the chat, but if anyone would like to drop a question in the chat, or if you would like to unmute and ask your question, you should be able to. So we can give it a few seconds to see if anyone has anything they would like to ask. I think you guys did a great job. Everything was very thorough. Thank you, Christy and Ryan. Maybe you guys were too thorough. No questions.
Hey, this is Ashley Parker, class of 2004. First of all, thank you guys. This has been really great. And it's been really interesting to see the mix of alumni from recent years and a few years ago. I jumped on Knoll Network while you were talking about it. And on my end, the link to sign up as a new user was not working. You could sign in if you already had a password. So just more of a comment than a question.
Right. So you have to sign in through the other user tab is where alumni sign in.
Okay.
Yeah. And do you know your FSU ID? Because the other thing, Ashley, that just happened is our ITS got rid of all the @my.fsu email addresses, and all students now have just a @fsu.edu email address. So that has affected some of our alumni sign-ins. So if
Okay, so older alumni might have to reach out to IT or something then?
you can, or what you can do is just give us a call in the morning
Okay.
to our main office line, and I'll put that number in the chat. And any one of our staff members can create your account and give you a temporary password so you can get logged in right away.
That's awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
I think Dania, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. She's unmuted as well, might have a question.
Yes, it's Dania.
Dania, thank you.
Yeah, my chat box isn't working for some reason. I wanted to know if how usual or unusual is it for employers to give feedback on what you were lacking if you felt like you had a successful interview, but you got the declination letter, we went with another candidate. Do they normally give feedback? Like if you ask for feedback on, what was missing?
I think that's something that's very personal to the hiring manager or that institution's policies. I know for the university, we're not able to discuss those things with the candidates because we're not trying to eliminate people. We're just trying to select the person with the best skill set for that position. But Ryan, I'm not sure if Deloitte has a different take on that.
I know a lot have similar, Christy, just the HR red tape of it, but I know I had a friend that just went through an interview and he got to the end, was one of the final 3 candidates and didn't get the position, ended up following with the recruiter and just asking for any feedback moving forward. And for him, it was just experience. They're like, we love you, you're a great candidate, but you just don't check that experience. So I think, kind of what Christy said, just case by case is specific, but it can't ever hurt to ask the recruiter at the end if you don't get the position for any feedback or stuff like that. And if it's in their policy, they usually are really happy to kind of give you that back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Dania, when you think about when we're career advising on a job search process, what we look at is first, are you getting interviews? If you're getting interviews, but maybe you're not making it to that second round, then we would know that your resume is working because you're getting the interview, but we would focus our attention on your actual interview preparation and maybe the way that you're answering those questions. But our career liaisons are also able to take a job posting or a position description and look at your resume. And, if you feel like you met the requirements for that position and maybe we could have worded it in a different way, you can always feel free to schedule a virtual appointment with us, and we'll help you walk through that.
Yeah, I definitely will. My most recent experience, I had a great interview. They were ready to schedule me for the second interview by the end of my first interview. And the second interview, I felt went great as well. We even discussed questions about the job offer, but then I didn't hear anything for like a week, and I followed up, and I just got the declination email.
Yeah.
And I asked for feedback, and I just never got a response.
Yeah, and there's so many factors that go into that. So I know with higher education, sometimes positions are not able to be filled. Sometimes someone above you has a different idea of what you should be hiring for. There's just so many factors that go into that. So I hope that doesn't discourage you, because clearly if you're making it through those interviews, you're doing the right things. I think it just means that decline got you that much closer to what's going to be your yes.
Yep. I'm going to reach out to the liaison.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat regarding the ATS with key requirements. How do you discreetly put in your resume 2 years of industry experience, etc.? Does that make sense?
Well, I think you would, so when you're talking about putting quantities or numbers on your resume, anything you can do to do the work for the HR people. So don't leave any mystery there. If you have 2 years of experience in customer service or 2 years experience in hospitality, again, you would decide if you're going to use the words customer service or hospitality by what the employer put in that job posting. Does that answer your question?
I think you might be, and correct me, Madeline, if I'm wrong, because 2 years of industry experience, I know common is 3 to 5. So I don't know if you're trying to just make sure you don't get vetted, even if you feel like you might be a great candidate. I don't know if that's more what you're trying to, just make sure you're not thrown out of the gate if you think you're qualified, but you might not check that experience. Yeah, okay. That was my guess too, because I'm still new, and my wife just graduated a few years from law school, and I think that's an issue a lot of new candidates joining the workplace have is you can't fake experience. But you do hope, some of the employers might not have the ATS system, or I think that's where the networking is so important, where you're able to meet the recruiter, give them your story, or just meet someone that you might not even have a job posting from some of the social networks that the Alumni Association might have. And that might be our best approach to getting in. Because I know for my wife, the only reason she even got the interview was she networked in the Tampa community, and one of her mentors knew she was looking for a job and then spammed it to her network. So I think just going back to our networking talk is what's going to get you ahead on that one. But great question.
And there's a couple on the same topic, so I'll kind of lump them together. How would you advise an international graduate to search for a job in the US? Or do you have any specific advice for international students, since most companies don't sponsor work visas?
Sure. So there are resources out there. We have some on our website for international friendly employers. What we've also found just from working with so many employers, that just because they say they don't sponsor, it doesn't mean that they don't always not sponsor. So that's where that networking piece really comes in. You need to build that relationship, show your worth and your value, and again, present your authentic self to them. And then, because you got to remember, like if you're at a career fair, the two individuals that come from Deloitte to our career fair, they may be under the impression that, Deloitte doesn't sponsor. However, Deloitte has how many employees and departments and
We do sponsor. I know we do, because I have a lot of friends that are international, but I know it's not easy or cheap. So that's why you are probably running into this with a lot of employers.
Mm-hmm. So we do have resources on our website to kind of conduct your job search, to give you some more tips for international students. But I would definitely say take advantage of professional networking, professional associations. Certainly coming to the event tonight, now you can connect on LinkedIn with all of us.
Yeah. There's one, I think I already answered this in the chat. It was for Keisha. She had asked about resume writing or critiquing services. So I reshared the link to the guides, but Chrissy, do you want to just reiterate one more time that it's available to alumni?
Sure. So you can either come to the Career Center, the Dunlap Success Center, anytime, Monday through Friday between 9 and 4:30. Or you can schedule a virtual appointment with your career liaison. So if you look on the Career Center's website and just do a search for the word liaison, and you'll get a whole list with all of our contact information there and how you can reach out to us to schedule an appointment to review your resume.
There was a question about the LinkedIn Learning. It looks like you all answered it yourselves in the chat. If I'm mistaken, let me know. We can go back to that question. Another question from Keisha was what's your advice for naming salary requirements? And do you give a higher number or a low one to not price yourself out? What's your suggestions there?
Sure. Well, the most important thing you need to do is research. So there's lots of information out there. We have tools on the Career Center's website where you can look up the salary ranges for your industry and also your level of experience. You can look at websites like Glassdoor to see salaries there. And, that's really a personal number that you're putting out there. I can tell you that as a hiring manager, it's one of the first things that we definitely look at. But I also think that it's important for you to really search that job posting, because most job postings are going to have a range there. And you can kind of figure based on your years of experience where you would fall in that range. I know our positions, when we post them, they always have a range there.
And then I guess back, sorry, Josh, I was seeing that you gave a link to someone else in the chat about LinkedIn, not that you had a question as well. So he sees that there, for current students, faculty, and staff, there are resources via LinkedIn Learning. Is this a resource also available to alumni? Do you know, is that something sponsored by Career Center or anything like that?
LinkedIn Learning is provided to the university by Human Resources.
So it's for staff. I'm looking at the link too.
Yeah, for employees.
Okay, got you. Thank you. I was trying to look at his link and keep reading the other questions coming in. Let's see. I believe we touched on this, but maybe there's more that we can add. When applying to internship or entry-level jobs that require 3+ years experience, how does one go about applying when they are applying to get experience?
Yeah, and I think that's just like the age-old issue when you're getting situated in your career is, you know, a lot of these places want the 3 to 5 experience, but you need the entry level. I know a lot of jobs do have entry level specific opportunities as associates, or you can just be an entry level attorney. But they are harder to find. They are more competitive because you're going to go against a lot of students and stuff. So, you know, we talked about networking. I think that's the greatest tool we have. And you know, you have our contacts, you have Christy's, you have Joanna's, you have mine, and I'm always happy to, you know, share my network. It's very accounting specific, but you know, you never know who Christy might know from a friend or her husband or someone like that. And that's where the power of networking is so important. So it might not be me specifically, but I might know, you know, my wife's company, you know, are looking for new attorneys or interns. So it is amazing when you network and really put time and effort, what you can get.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. There was one more question going back to international searches. Is there a website that you are aware of that may list international friendly employers?
Yes, so if you look on the Career Center's website, we have a tab for the Career Center library, and there are all of our databases. So the university pays for Going Global, and then also for Firsthand or Vault and Career Shift. So those databases, you can find even the contact names for people who are posting positions. You can see the last time they sponsored employees or new hires. You can find a lot of information on those. So if you'll get into the Career Center site and then look under the resources, the library, and then specifically in those databases. And it's important that you log into those from the Career Center's website because we're already paying for you to have access for those. And if you have any questions about those, you can talk to either your career liaison, or you can also call and speak with our librarian.
I just dropped a link that might help get you there a little faster in the chat as well for that. I believe I just have one more chat come in. Let me see if it's a question. So yeah, I think we are done with all of the questions unless somebody comes in with one more at the last minute. What we will do is go ahead and put some links in the chat still to a couple LinkedIn pages. So I'm happy to connect if you would like to look up me specifically. I've got our Alumni Association and the Career Center chat links as well in the chat. If Christy or Ryan are also willing to go ahead and put that in there too, that would be helpful. On the screen right now, you see our ad basically for our next career services webinar. It will be in the future. This was the one for today. Sorry, that's a little outdated. I apologize. But what we're going to do is have one that's for Knowles who are current employers looking to engage with alumni from Florida State. So that link is in your chat if you would like to go ahead and register for that, or pass it on to someone at your company who may be that employer who would be talking to potential employees. And then we'll have one more later in the fall. That's going to be a responsible networking. That is also available on our website if you would like to check alumni.fsu.edu. All of our upcoming events live on our website, and we look forward to seeing you there. Other than that, I'm all set. Christy and Ryan, thank you again so much for your time tonight and presenting to our fellow alumni and friends. And that's all from me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye, y'all.